Okay, in this tutorial video, you are going to create an invoice using Excel spreadsheet. Create the template, and then what you will do is you will complete an invoice based on some given circumstances. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is to cost a service, and you're going to do that using the Google web search. It should take less than 15 minutes, and the stipulations are, I want you to choose a car, any car, doesn't really matter. But then you need to find out the individual unit costs of oil for that car, how much new filter, how much coolant costs per bottle, how much it is per tyre. You can choose your own brand, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to go with Summer tyres. Wiper blades, front and back, and one side light. Then you're going to make a decision on how long you think it will take to complete a service of changing the oil, doing the filter, doing the coolant, doing a couple of tyres at the front, doing the wiper blades front and back, and also doing the side light. So how long do you think it will take? And then how much you would expect as a garage to charge per hour. And you will ultimately have an invoice that looks something along these lines. Okay, so this tutorial makes the assumption that you have done all of that work and are now ready to complete the template. The template is going to look something along these lines. You will find Excel in Start menu, and then you go All Programs, and scroll down until you find Microsoft Office, which is there. Inside of there, Excel is the green one, quite close to the top of that folder. You can, if you want, pin that to the Start menu if you use it regularly. Okay, so once you open that up, you would be faced with a workbook with 3 spreadsheets in. So sheets live within a workbook. You can have numerous sheets within one. And I'm going to treat this sheet as though it was the first sheet in this file, like this was to start off with. So that's my ultimate goal, is to create this and a series of steps to do it. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do, open sheet 2 in this case, but you'll be opening sheet 1, and then I am going to rename that sheet. I can either do that by double clicking or right clicking over the top and choosing rename. Then I'll just call that invoice template. When you complete, what I'd like you to have 2 is an invoice template which is blank, and then a completed version. Let's get rid of this little thing at the bottom here. So my garage is going to be called Corkit's Garage. Well, actually, make it sound better than it is. Corkit's Auto Services. And I've just put that into a cell. So Excel is made up of columns and rows, and each column or row has cells within it. And the way you reference them is, say, for instance, I've put that in A2. And the great thing about Excel is that when I click on a cell, I will get the reference because it's highlighted at the top, B3, A4. That's quite useful for when you need to make cell references. So you need to refer to a specific cell. And we will do that because we've got some calculations to achieve. Okay, so I'd quite like row A to be a bit wider. So what I've done is I've hovered over the boundary between A and B, and I get a different cursor. Click, and I drag whilst clicking, and I can make it wider. So I'm going to make it a bit wider. And just flick back for an idea of what we're doing. I'm going to have it, yeah, okay. So Corkit's Auto Services is going to take the full width, but I'll format that a little bit later on. Currently, it's just going to take up 2 cells. Below it, I'll put the address. That can take up 2 cells too. So in there, I'll just put Prairie Road, Beverly, the Yorks, and then I'll merge the other 2 cells below again. There's a reason I'm doing this, but you'll see that as we go along. Tell 01482 390 831. And then what I'm going to be doing after that is adding in some of the details that would go below. So I've got invoice number, date in, and time in. To do that, we're going to put some special formatting on these two cells here. I've left a line between. So I've got invoice number, and then that will go into B. I might make B a slightly wider cell still. Maybe not quite that wide. And I'm going to left justify these bits of text. So highlight them all by clicking, dragging, and then line text. Next thing I'm going to do is put in date in. Underneath that, I use the cursor to drop down there, time in. So invoice number can just be a made up number. It'd be 1234007, whatever. Date in. What I'm going to do is right click and format cells. So I want that to be date. You can choose a format you would prefer. I'm actually going to go with one that's quite meaningful to English. So 14th of March 2001 is the format. Time in, then I will format that cell, choosing time instead of date. I can go with the default. Okay. Now a little tip for populating date in and time in the real world when you're using an invoice, you're probably going to open this template up and want to add it there and then. Well, if you press Control and colon at the same time, sorry, Control and semicolon, colon, whatever it is, you will get that. Press Return, and it will format it as I have told it to previously. If I hold Control, Shift, and semicolon, it will put the time in, press Return, and it will put the time in fully for me. So that's quite useful to remember that shortcut. I will just put them in the Word document for you. So, shortcuts are Control plus this, or this, whichever way you look at it, and Control plus Shift plus this. And that becomes insert date, and that becomes insert time. Okay, so on the next line down, I'm then going to insert part description, quantity, unit price, total. So I'm going to merge A and B together for part description to give it a bit more space. So I can just click on Merge and Center. This is in the ribbon. Part description. And then I'm going to put, you could put unit price then quantity, or quantity and then unit price, QTY, unit price. This will require us to do some more formatting. And then total for that line. Below that line, I'm going to leave blank for a second. I'm also going to insert a row for labor, which will just take up that bit. We'll put a quantity in and a unit price. Okay. So I want to merge these to match the part description field. So it should look the same below. There we go. Now the quantity is just going to be a number, so I can just format cells, tell it it's a number. Could have decimal places, might be appropriate. You might use 3/4 of a bottle of oil. You might use 45 minutes worth of time. So it's probably worth having decimal places there. Same with unit price when it comes to it. In currency, we'll want a couple of decimal places to represent the pennies that we may charge for certain things. And then the total, again, we'll format the cell as currency. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put 0 in quantity, 0 in unit price. And we will do a formula in the total row. And so all we're doing is basically taking the quantity and multiplying it by the unit price. So should we use 2 bottles of oil at twice the price? And the way to do that, to enter a formula, is you can Start typing as soon as you've selected a cell, and what it will do is it will start to put it into the formula bar. Something like the formula bar to be a bit bigger so I can read it. So equals. This tells it that you are putting a calculation of some description in. And all I'm going to then do is refer to a specific cell. So the cells I want to refer to are C11 and D11. So it equals C11, and the way to put a times in or multiply is to use the star. The star has its own key on the numeric keypad to the right-hand side of the keyboard, and it also is found with Shift and 8 times D11. Currently, nothing times nothing equals nothing. I would also probably like to copy and paste all three of those into my labor row. So Control and C is copy, or you can highlight all together, right click and copy, and then in the next row, paste. And that should paste the values and the formula. You'll notice in the line for labor that it's changed from C11 to C12 and from D11 to C12. So it's quite useful that Excel figures that out for you. Now we're going to need more than one row to be able to function. You probably decide on how many you might have. So what I can do is I can highlight a whole row. When I hover over the number for it, it gives me a big fat black arrow. I click, it will highlight the whole row. Then what I can do is I can copy it. So I can Control C, or I can right click and copy. And then what I want to do is insert copied cells. What it will do is it will create a new row with the formatting and with the formulas, as we see there, and everything else. The only problem is that you have to copy it again to then insert copied cells. So what you could do is when you've done a few is copy 3 and then insert those copied cells. Ooh. Let's see if it let me do the row. There we go. So let me insert the full row. And the reason it didn't work before is because I didn't select the full row. Right then. So the next thing we need to insert is the VAT, or actually the subtotal. So we want the subtotal. So what I'll do is I'll merge these two cells together under quantity and unit price and just put subtotal. And this is the amount before VAT. And that will equal, and I'm going to put in the word sum. There's a couple of ways you can do this, but sum is probably the most appropriate. So then you insert brackets. And then it's asking you which numbers you want to put in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a range of numbers. You could just put individual references. What I want to do is to say I want to go from E11, and notice how it highlights that box, so I know I'm putting the right number in the right reference. Then colon, which is there, and E17, which refers to the last of the total values. Then when I press return, what it'll do is it will just equal 0. But if I was to say, for instance, put in an amount of 1 and then 12, notice how the subtotal, the total calculates the total for that line, and the subtotal picks that up at the bottom there. We know that that all works. If I delete that, 0, 0. Okay. I'm then going to put the VAT in here. So Merging Center VAT, which will be 20% in this case. And I'll also be getting ready to put Merging Total Payable. And that will equal, okay, so it's 20% of the subtotal. And you can do that by taking the amount, dividing it by 100 and timesing it by 20. The shortcut is basically to refer to that amount, E18 subtotal, and then rather than dividing by 100 and times by 20, just times it by 0.2. And 0.2 is the decimal equivalent of 20%. with 1 being the equivalent of 100%. So when I press return, it'll give me amount. So let's go through that again and put in 2 units of 12. Notice how it gives me a subtotal of 24 and a VAT of £4.80. 0, 0. And total payable, well, that could equal E18 and E19 together combined, like so. Or it could equal the subtotal times 1.2, which would add the 20% on the top. It's neither in or there, whether you choose which. But I suppose if you have got the value wrong in E19, it might carry across. So I'll go with E18 times 1.2. And then we can see what it equals. So 2 times £9 for those units. And there we go. 18 plus £3.60 equals £21.60, and that's correct. I'm also going to merge a couple of cells together at the bottom here and just put in invoices payable within 28 days. And then a little bit of formatting. So I can select a cell, and in the ribbon, I've got a fill color for that cell, and I've got a text color as well if I wish. So my subtotal can be orange, my VAT could be yellow, my total payable could be green. A nice positive color to send out the right signals when I want someone to give me money. I might set the text color to white so it stands out a bit more. Different color for the company name, perhaps. Kind of dark blue, make it bigger. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to merge all of these cells to full width, like so. Give it a background color. Be yellow this time. Put it across to the left again. And I'll do the same with the invoices payable. Merge center, make that yellow too, so it's obvious that's an important bit. A little bit of banding here for the different sections. So blue. Once I've chosen a color, I can use that color again because it will go to the top of that palette. Maybe change the typeface there as well. There we go. And then it's just a case of using it, really. What I would like you to do there to make sure you've got a template and a complete sheet is if you right-click at the bottom and then choose Move or Copy, you can then create a copy and insert it before sheet 3. Click OK, and it will give you invoice template 2. I can then maybe say, invoice 1606 216 0099, whatever. But you would probably save separate files for that. Okay, and that's the end of this tutorial.